Thank you all for coming. So I know that the struggle for all of us is very real when it comes to labor. I've done a few job fairs now, and there's not as many people coming through. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the talk that I'm doing today as far as getting creative with recruitment. The things that I want to talk about today is obviously some of the economic changes that have taken place as why it's affecting our labor shortage. Then recruitment and how social media is playing into recruitment. And then just to touch briefly on retention, because it's still so very important once we find these needles in the haystack, that how do we retain them and keep them? Knowing that we're in seasonal businesses, it makes it even more difficult because we don't have the opportunity always to keep people all year round. Some of the unavoidable factors that we have is first and foremost the generational gaps. Obviously, with some of the older generations going and retiring, we don't have as many skilled people that are in our industry. So now we're relying on some of the younger generations coming in to do some manual labor. And realistically, and I'm sure y'all can attest, not a lot of the younger generations. I know personally I have a 15-year-old. Manual labor is not in his vocabulary. So now trying to get people into the swing of things and wanting to come in and not only learn a new skill, being in the landscape industry, and also know that it's tough work out there. Some of the other things is the government intervention. So they're putting a lot of restrictions on temporary workers. So I don't know if any of you use and reach out and use the H1B seasonal workers from that perspective. We currently don't, but it's where you can go out to other countries, Mexico, and recruit and bring them in for your season, and then they go back to their respective country after the fact. But now with Trump being president, some of the restrictions that are being put in place doesn't allow, and there's a lot more. So now we have to find other ways to find our labor shortage. Obviously, I don't have to tell anyone that's in this industry that the housing market's in an upswing, so there's a consistent growth in residential construction, which encourages homeowners to spend and invest in their properties, which all is a benefit to us, right? Because that's how we make our money. Lastly, the unemployment, which is the biggest contributor to the factor, is the national average right now is 4.1% unemployment, and in Minnesota it's even lower at 3.3%. So I just wanted to start off with a definition of recruitment, actually. So it's the process of finding and hiring the best qualified candidate from either within or outside of our organization for a job opening in a timely and a cost-effective manner. Ultimately for us, we want to be able to find the needle in the haystack, the perfect candidate, but doing it and to be able to save money. So not put a lot of resources into finding and doing recruitment. In the next slides that I have, there's the different types of recruitment methods. So first and foremost, the traditional methods are what are so costly. So we can advertise in local papers, employment offices, temporary staffing, internal hiring, and most effectively word of mouth. A lot of these, on average, putting in postings and jobs, job employment ads, either online or offline, they can be anywhere from $100 to $500 a posting. And is that a cost-effective way to recruit when we're not necessarily sure if we're going to get the turn or the response that we're looking for? So is it going to be that full-fledged investment? From a traditional, it's like the higher the cost and not even if we're going to get the best results. Out of all of the traditional ones, I don't know from your guys' perspective, and I'm interactive, please jump in if you have any feedback at all. For us, it's been word of mouth. So we've had our our college students that have come on board and have returned, and then they've had good successes with our company, and then they've offered and given information to their friends at college that in turn get referrals for us. And I don't know if any of you guys have had any of that as well. So from a traditional perspective, We all understand what those traditionals are, but why are we here? Because not necessarily the traditional methods are working. So moving forward, what does the modern, quote, recruitment methods mean? What does it mean? So essentially, it's using all of those social media sites that we have learned from that are out there. Not necessarily use all of them, but it's a different way to get our company culture out there. It's important to the new generation because that's how they interact mostly. They interact with their technology, not so much face-to-face, going out and doing the interviews. So we have to, as business owners, keep up with the technology and the times, changing our strategies and keeping them moving with the way that things are moving for the economy. Not only is it like from a recruiting perspective, but it also does dual purpose. It also gets our brand out there. So it's kind of like a hit and miss, like two things at once. So we're not only recruiting, trying to find new staff, but we're also getting our advertisement out there and getting our brand awareness. I just did kind of like a little funny, just from back to how we can compare the way things were back in the day on how we can relate it to all of the social media sites. Via LinkedIn, Foursquare, Twitter, Facebook, WordPress. A lot of days now, those social media sites, people don't necessarily know. The kids nowadays wouldn't necessarily know what a Rolodex is. And they would much rather go to LinkedIn or your posted board versus Pinterest of the things that you like. So, okay. So just to break it down even more as far as like how we can compare back then versus now and how things have changed. So back in the day, everyone would bring in their hand deliver their resume. Now people just go on job boards and submit. Networking, you would go out, socialize in face-to-face interactions and conversations. Now everyone wants to in social media groups, online hangouts, and do discussions. It's the conversation within the technology, not necessarily an individual. Employer events, job fairs. As I mentioned, I had just attended the BATSI job fair last week, and there was hardly anybody that came through. Now it's all on virtual job fairs. Going on to job boards, just submitting your information and just waiting and hoping for a phone call to come. Versus then the paper resume versus the online profile. LinkedIn. Everyone has a LinkedIn profile, I'm sure. That's the only way, because now recruiters are going out and searching those social media sites to find people and not necessarily waiting for those people to come to them. And then face-to-face interviews, and then now we have Skype. For us to move forward and being more creative using these social media sites, as I had mentioned before, job fairs and the job postings on newspapers are super expensive and still are, even though that we don't use them as much as we used to. So anywhere from $100 to $500 you can cost per job. And you're not necessarily guaranteed to get that, an individual. I don't know if any of you have had the same problem. I could post something, have it posted for 30 days, repost it, and still get zero feedback and no one interested at all. The cost per click for us, even though it doesn't directly affect the businesses, but it's anywhere dramatically decreased, it's 25 cents to $1.50. So obviously the way to go is more towards the social media online versus the traditional ways that we've had it before. The other things is, as far as the sites go, is the goals of getting a social media sites for our businesses and using those ways to recruit. It's not only getting our brand awareness out there, we're also providing an online culture of how our businesses are. Nowadays with the generations, that's what's important to them, is they want to know that culturally they'll fit in a business. It's not necessarily about, I shouldn't say about the money, because we all know money makes the world go around, but now in the younger generations, what's important is that they can make a difference and that they matter to the overall effect of business. They want to know that they're important, and when they do come to work every day, that they're personally making a difference. So how do we do that? We need to promote online that our culture is a good culture and it's a place that you'd want to go work. How else can we do that? We can get our current employees, to write reviews, to post things about our businesses, to entice people to want to come and work for us. not only that, from an online perspective, it's just a matter of figuring out which sites that you want to go to be able to recruit, on what types of people you want to recruit from. So just a little bit of information based on social media usage and the generational ages. So obviously for us, the big people of social media online are the 18 to 49-year-olds, not excluding anyone else out. I joke with my mom all the time that she's in beyond that. You know, the gentleman up here who's holding his phone up and, why is this not working? But she doesn't find it very funny either, so thanks for not laughing. Just kidding. Nonetheless, with all those, because there's so many social media online sites, it's just determine what's important to you. So what are you guys looking for? What do we want to do? Do we want to, because from that perspective, it's like gathering a social media strategy. Who do you want to attract and how do you want to attract them? Do you want to go after people and find out what they're personally interested in? So are they interested in landscaping? Are they interested in being outdoors? Are they interested in flowers or ponds and things of that nature? Do you want to be able to go and look and find out if people are, how they interact with the general public outside? So it's those different types of things that determine how you would go out and recruit from a social media perspective. Just some interesting facts that I had found with regards to social media. So a third of the total time spent online is devoted to social networks and messaging apps. That's essentially 2 hours a day per individual. So of all these the time that we have, that we know people are out on these social media sites, it just makes no sense, not no sense, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, it makes no sense to go out there. It's a no-brainer to go out and utilize these. A lot of these sites obviously are all free. We don't have to pay to participate. So it's easy to attain and advertise out there and recruit. People in the US spend on average 40 minutes per day just on Facebook. Isn't that crazy? I think about it, 40 minutes a day. If you're at work at least 8 to 9 hours a day, so that means you're just going home and hanging out on social media. Or you're at work sneaking on social media. Just kidding. But still, that's a lot of time. Facebook is a good place to find people as far as they have online groups, hangouts. There's actually search functions on all of the social media sites. You can do advanced search functions. So you can search based on people's interests or things that they've posted or things that they've liked. It's a good way to reach out to folks. The last one here is 89% of the total time users spend on their smartphones is in mobile apps. So I know for myself, obviously, I'm sure you all can attest, maps, online baking, all of those things. So is it something then, from a business perspective, that you want to make an online app to help direct people to go to, make it easier for them to find out about you versus the natural or the unconventional way of finding out about businesses and what they're looking for. So some of the, I'm behind the minutes here. So just some of the advantages and the disadvantages of using social media. Obviously, some of the advantages are some things that we've already hit on with regards to open and more diverse selection of candidates. You're not restricting. You're going to get some that you might not normally get via just posting online and waiting for a paper resume to come in or via email. Not to mention, you can access more information, so you can find out about people's personal interests, their social interactions, and then some of the social media sites, people are allowed to go on there and put on their work samples. A lot of the creative, there's like GitHub and what's another one? Dabble. They're places where people can do online portfolios. So it's a lot of places where you can go and just do research on your folks. Some of the disadvantages, refined searches can be struggle. Depending on what you're actually looking for, it's a hit or miss. There could be a good candidate and they don't have anything on their profiles that are even directly correlated to what you're looking for. The other one is that gathering the wrong information opens you up for a lawsuit. Excuse me. I tell our supervisors all the time, because as they get new resumes in, the first thing they want to do is go out and search Facebook and go out and search some of the other social media sites. You just have to be careful based on the laws. You technically can't gather information about anybody or do any, quote, background checks prior to offering making an offer. So I know, as an example here, we've had managers that go out on Facebook and they're like, oh, I don't know necessarily if we want to hire that person. They've posted like drunk pictures, or they hang out with someone that I've heard. Unfortunately, we can't hold that against them if they find out, which now we've learned last year, our managers have learned Facebook has the opportunity where people can, on their profiles, see who's looked at their profile. We actually had a candidate come in and say, hey, I saw so-and-so cyberstalked me. Not good from a business perspective, because it opens you up to potential lawsuits if you choose not to hire someone. Because they can always say, well, I saw that they went out and looked at me on Facebook or Twitter, and then use that against you. Obviously, LinkedIn is slightly different because that's a professional setting. Most people don't put like inappropriate things on LinkedIn because they're obviously out there trying to get people or businesses to want to look after them.
Okay, so how do you block yourself from
How do you block yourself from those searches? Unfortunately, Facebook, to not being able to see.
Yeah.
I don't think that Facebook has the opportunity to do that. Kind of like my guy with the spyglass. I think now with the new trend of cyber stalkers, that they don't have the opportunity to allow you to block, which is kind of it's a bad thing, good thing kind of thing. So, but yeah, I don't know. We haven't figured that out. I've just shied our managers away from leaving that as a last resort. I personally, every time we get a resume that comes in, the first thing I do is I go out and I look on LinkedIn just to see if someone's out there. So I'll be the first to admit that I'm kind of like a cyber stalker. I'm just a legal cyber stalker is the way I put it. So, but just to see if someone has a professional profile out there. That way you can also see who those people are connected to. Because it could be possible that you know someone that they know, but you don't know that they know them, and therefore can get a reference without them even knowing, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize them to your benefits. It's just a matter of taking the time to get used to the different social media sites. One of the things that is for me personally here at Hedberg that I've started to do is we have to come up with some type of social media strategy. Because obviously being able to touch base on every single different social media site is just not conducive, let alone cost effective. We won't have a defined goal that we want to reach. So what I've done is I've come in and figured out what social media sites do we want to touch base on? Where do we want to post? Where do we want to search? What type of people are we going to attract? And then if I don't get those results, then how do I move forward from that? Unfortunately, social media changes every day. And with the change in technology, it's only going to get worse before it gets better, because that's just the way things are moving and progressing, right? So we just have to become aware. If things aren't working, then how do we change it up so we don't get stagnant and lost and get stuck behind and lost, if that makes sense? Anything? Question?
Yeah, actually kind of two quick questions. Number one, is Facebook kind of like the best place to go recruiting, or which one do you find to be the best, A? And then B, if you've been using Facebook, they recently changed their news feed on how they feed information through. Has that affected how
we find people?
How your response rate is coming through?
Sure. So from a Facebook perspective, I've utilized it and I've gone in, there's advanced searches. So what I've done is searched more of it's like the Pinterest, for lack of a better term. So not necessarily Pinterest, because I'm not creative and I don't get it. So I'll be the first to tell you. But from Facebook's perspective, they have a lot of online groups and a lot of groups that people like and that they like, and then there's not necessarily job boards, but boards that people can post. So in the advanced search settings, you can search, not a good example, but it's the only thing that's coming to my head, basket weaving. Do you know what I mean? If that's something that we were interested in. And then when you search, it'll show you all the profiles that are associated to the online groups that are correlate with basket weaving. From that, then you can look. What I've done is I've used that and found the individuals and then gone on to LinkedIn. So I take a little bit more heed as far as like quick to jump on and try to find people's profiles. I just don't want to be caught looking at a profile and then I always think the worst, right? Look at a profile and all of a sudden they apply for a job and then I don't like them. And then we have all this other stuff. So I wait for Facebook last to look like online quick. Obviously, some tidbits don't, like I've told some of our managers, don't click on people's pictures, don't click on posts and read them. If you want to like skim through, that's one thing, but when you start getting and delving in too much, then it just opens the floodgates for long-term bad results, if that makes sense, right?
Have you used Facebook jobs board yet, or?
I haven't, but that's one that's on my list. I've used LinkedIn, I've used some of the other big ones, like LinkedIn and Indeed. Those are the big ones. One of the things that I use is ZipRecruiter, so it hits like 50 plus job boards, so I guess it could be on Facebook. I rely on our marketing department too to utilize the social media sites. I give them the information and they post on all of our social media sites as well. I know that there's some of my HR colleagues have used Facebook job boards and they've gotten good results from that, so I wouldn't discount it in any way, shape, or form. Good questions. Any other questions? Okay. So with that, one of the things I'd like me internally, and just posing this on to other people, is are our expectations high? Based on the labor pool that's out there and what's available, is the perfect candidate out there? Do they really exist? Some of the things that we need to think about. Instead of finding the perfect candidate, they have all the perfect skills. They have the perfect, the whole profile is what we expect or what we're looking for. Do we lower our standards and do they have the soft skills we're looking for? Do they have customer service skills? Maybe they don't have the hard skills, but they have great customer service skills. They have a great attitude. They want to be a team player. We can teach them the hard skill stuff, or vice versa. You have to get a little careful with not having the soft skills versus the hard skills. Soft skills not necessarily are anything that you can teach per se, but you always can give people an opportunity when you know that they might be a really good worker and they have the hard skills that you're looking for. Some of the other things that come up that I'm reevaluating for my recruitment process and strategy this year is readjusting when we're seeking hourly employee. Would a person prefer part-time versus full-time? In the past, we've always been able to get people, hey, yeah, we're seasonal, but we offer full-time hours. Where else can you go work for 8 months of the year and get 40 plus hours a week? Not a lot of places, especially for like some of the younger kids, the college kids. But times have changed. Do they want full-time hours? Is it more cost-effective to hire a couple part-time people in place of the one full-time person? Knowing that part-time, when they come, you're getting the most out of them versus a full-time person. If that makes sense, do you know what I mean? Not to mention from that, I put generational gaps. Do we not necessarily, are we overlooking some of in our industry, the retired folks? People who are retired from the landscape industry or the masonry industry. Maybe they don't necessarily want to do all the hardcore labor per se, but here, do they want to come and work at our city desk? Their information is priceless for us. Likewise for your businesses as well. Would they make a great foreman or would they make a great lead versus, knowing that you're not going to get a full-fledged, the manual labor out of them. But readjusting how we think about that because we're so restricted on how many people we have or what we're looking for. Just some things that I've got. A quarter of the candidates are millennials. So that's 7 out of 10 people are millennials. So it kind of goes back with the social media and how you're going to get these people and get them interested. There are social media users. And not to mention, that number will continue to grow as people stay hyper connected. I don't know about you, but you have a work phone, a personal phone, laptop, I mean, nobody has home phones anywhere. It's radios. We're all hyper connected, so we just have to move our strategies and start looking on how we're going to recruit and get the most from that. Some of the other things from expectations, and keep in mind when you are recruiting online is if you want to not only like look from a recruitment perspective but a brand perspective. There was a survey that was done. 84% of participants would be willing to leave their current company for a company that has a positive reputation. So what does your current business say about you? Would your employees recommend other people? Hence why it's beneficial to get your current staff involved in your recruitment process, especially when it comes from a social media perspective. Any questions? Okay. Get behind on my pictures. So then there's the what else. I'll be the first to admit I am not the best at the social media thing, but I know that it's something that we have to use. So some of the other things that I've been doing is thinking outside of the box. What else can we do to get people into our businesses and want to work for us? One of the facts that I've found, just being at job fairs and going to different technical colleges, is all of like the landscape design programs. There are far few between people who are jumping at the guns to take those courses, where now technical colleges are considering canceling those courseworks. So how do we get people engaged in our industry? So some of the things that I've started doing, which the other handout that I have are all community outreach programs and other programs, training programs that I've reached out to that will be willing for us to go out and educate people on what our industry is doing and what we have to offer as far as from a professional standpoint. So going out to technical colleges or even high schools from that matter, trying to offer mentorships, internships, apprenticeships, getting people engaged, even if it's just for a trial period. Excuse me. There's job training programs at the workforce centers. I just learned, the hints is on this year. I found the Goodwill Easter Seals has a construction program where they let people come and they teach them different construction techniques and skills to get people out in the world in the construction industry, because we're such a labor shortage across the board, not just from our industry perspective. But they're good places to go. So for me, it's like reaching out to those folks, letting them know, yes, I know this, Hedberg is not your ideal end spot because you're going to school to learn how to frame and do actual construction things, but we're a great training ground for our contractors, for our customers who are actually doing the work. You can come and learn about the products, learn about installation, and give it a try and a feel. Also get to know the customers to be able to go out and when they're looking for people, then word of mouth runs rampant through a lot of the suppliers and locations from that perspective. I don't know if a lot of people know there are state-funded grants for businesses to offer training programs and mentorships and apprenticeships. So the government will actually pay us to find labor, which is beneficial from us. Obviously, you have to put some effort in, right? But who wouldn't want free money and then end up with great workers in the end? Then there's county programs that I have all listed on that sheet as well. There's community outreach programs, community action programs. A lot of those places offer skill set based training just to give people ideas of different opportunities. A lot of these programs are like inner city programs, so it's for an audience that may not have the opportunity to either go to college or go to a technical school, or even have the opportunity from a financial perspective to have transportation to get to an outlying job, right? So I've reached out to some of those, and they're willing to allow us to come in and have conversations with their classes to tell them about our industry, about our businesses, what we're looking for, give people the opportunity. From my perspective, like thinking outside of the boxes is that we need to start educating the outlying audiences about our industry and give them opportunity to learn about us. If they do, then that would just open our floodgates for our labor. We just have to give the opportunity, take the opportunity that's given and maybe look outside of our, quote, traditional of what we're looking for from a labor perspective. if that makes sense. Some of the other programs that I didn't know existed, but I found out is like MinCore, which when the gentleman first came up to me, I kind of shied away, obviously, not to discriminate against anyone, but you think of corrections, the correctional facilities, but a lot of those people want to get into a different trade, be a productive citizen of society. So they actually have a program where they allow people to come, they train them on, how to do job interviews, how to show up on time, all the basic skills, but also other skills that are available. For us, like for Hedberg, I didn't realize that St. Cloud State offers a Mason coursework. So it offers, us the opportunity to go and have discussions with potential, parolees that are looking for a fresh start, that we'd have an opportunity, but they've already got the skill set, but there's just the one hindrance that may not allow them to find a job outside. So that's the big thing for me, I guess, the key takeaway from here is we just all have to think outside of the box. But for me is if we all work together, then we would have the opportunity to find more people. It's just a matter of educating the masses about our industry, if that makes sense. Questions? Comments? Yeah.
I did have one question. And I know you're a little bit different than most of us in
Right.
landscaping. Have you found it to be successful targeting, I know we're male dominant, but females in the recruitment process?
That's interesting that you say that, because I just ran across, when I was at the Batsy Job Fair this week, Goodwill Easter Seals program, a bunch of, and some other vendors had said the same thing. It's awesome. A group of females had come through. And obviously, overly cocky, which I appreciate, but they're like, we don't need a man. We're here. The women are taking over. We're new to the industry, but I think there's going to be an uprise from that perspective. Not to mention, because we're a male-dominated industry, I think that women are slightly intimidated. So that's the other thing from an educational perspective. If we can give more education to women and get them to understand, it's not so scary, that the men are not so bad, right? From that perspective, it's just the education. But I have seen an upswing in programs that the increase in women. Other questions? Comments? Okay. Moving through this. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about retention. I know last year, if you attended my presentation, it was more on a retention factor. I didn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time on retention, but I still thought it was important. Once we find these people, it's still a matter of how are we going to retain them. For us, it's a little bit different. Being in smaller businesses and seasonal businesses, we're seasonal workers, so we're restricted on what we can offer these workers with regards to benefits. 401k, some of the other major benefits that people look for when they're looking for work. So either we need to find people who don't want to work for 4 months out of the year, or don't really care if they have benefits or not because they have a spouse or someone else who has them. So how do we retain or offer other people, our employees, other options to keep them enticed and wanting to stay? Because we have to be realistic. We can't keep everyone all winter. Rewards, so small tokens of appreciation. Just remind them that they're important. With the newer generation now, that's what's key to them. They want to feel that they're important. They want to feel that what they do on a daily basis for you matters, and that their input puts into the greater good of the business. Whether that's just $5 gift cards, $10 gift cards, a jar of candy or what have you. They seem small and ridiculous, but I think people appreciate them overall. Trying to keep people and employees engaged. Small wins, and I know here we've done it as well. We focus on the large goal. Let's get through the season. At the end of the season, let's make all of our budget, and then at the end, we'll all have a big, hoopla. Now people want to see instantaneous small wins. So let's focus on the small wins and the little milestones versus the large goals at the end of the day. A lot of people will stay engaged that way if there's something more often than not, if that makes sense. Constant reviews. The generation nowadays wants to know that they're doing well, so they want to be constantly updated as far as you're doing a good job. Not necessarily like the formal aspect of a review, right? But the constant updates as far as you're doing a good job. These are the things that you can focus on. They want to know that what they're doing or they is doing, adding or contributing to the end, one. And two, from an educational perspective, they constantly want to be learning something new. So this way, we're killing two birds with one stone. And then lastly, don't be afraid to change. So as businesses, we all have gotten kind of complacent and stuck in our policies and procedures. But what we might have to do from a mindset change is we're going to have to change our mindset to accommodate our new labor. The ultimate goal in order to retain people is knowing that our employees are happy. So if we're not necessarily stuck in our ways and we're willing to change, then obviously moving forward, we can keep people engaged and want to stay with us as well. Any other questions? Comments? I guess I can take complaints if you want. That's what HR is for, right? I know that's quick and dirty and easy. That's all I have from a presentation perspective, but I'm wanting to use the last little bit to open up to questions or what you guys have tried and hasn't worked. Utilize the time to bounce things off of each other. So I'm open. Questions, comments, or what you guys have seen. Yeah.
As far as when you look at using other temporary services or recruitment services where you're paying a fee or whatever, have you had any luck with that, or what kind of fees are there? What's a good price to pay, I guess?
A good price to pay
for what you've experienced anyway.
We luckily, knock on wood, I haven't had to use them a lot. And last year we had a few that came in that are geared more towards the construction industry, so they understand what we're looking for from a labor perspective. Typically, I would say if you're paying, you decide an hourly wage, and if you're paying $2 or less more than that wage, like for a fee perspective, I would say that's pretty good. However, what I've heard though is because everyone's struggling to find the labor, the temp agencies and the staffing agencies are obviously capitalizing off of this now. So they're raising their fees, hence why trying to come up with other avenues to find the labor is one of the things that's important to me, just because I don't want to have to pay so much. Not necessarily because, let's be real, we're all struggling to find people. The staffing agencies are too. The only thing the staffing agencies are doing that's different than what we're able to do is they have like a bench, right? So if player A doesn't work, we just call them up and they'll send us player B, but we're not guaranteed that player B is going to be any better than player A. Where our bench, we don't have a bench full of players. So that's really the only difference, because the word out on the street is they're not finding people either. So the struggle is across the board.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeah.
Have you had better luck with one side or the other? You said you used Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Is there a result?
Well, the funny thing is that ZipRecruiter covers Indeed. So that's one thing that I like about ZipRecruiter, and the fee is not that terrible. It's like one flat fee for the year, and you can post as, I think you can have 3 to 4 posts at a time. Obviously you can pay for more, but for us, we don't need to have that many. But they hit all the 50 major job boards, which Indeed's included, Career Builder, LinkedIn, and then you can link in. The other thing that you can do with ZipRecruiter is you can connect your social media sites, like your company social media sites, and tag that on too. And then they don't charge you anything else. The other thing that I like about ZipRecruiter is they offer traffic boosts. So they obviously for a nominal fee, right? It's not terrible, but they work. So when they hit up a traffic boost, they'll push it out to even more, or they'll double team some of the other sites that they know have a higher traffic, which helps out as well. The other thing that I noticed with ZipRecruiter is that it's easy to repost. So like once you post it once, and then you realize that your posting is going stagnant, then you can just go back out there and you can just re-click, and it'll put you back up at the top of the list, which is kind of nice. What they say is for job postings, you should be monitoring at least like once a week, because there's so many people looking. You post on Monday, by Friday you're like 300 into the list. Then, you know, realistically, once people get to like page 3 of the job postings, they quit, and then you don't get seen anymore. Yeah.
That just brought a question up. What day do you find most beneficial to post on?
Fridays.
Fridays?
Yeah. That's where I've ironically enough, the Geek in Me has tried different days just to see when, you know, the next day, how many more that you get. I found that if you post Friday afternoon, then you get all the people who are at home on the weekends, either off of their jobs, you know, that are not at work, not off their jobs, but not at work, but are potentially looking for something new. They have more time on the weekends to search. So then on Monday when I come in, then I have a whole slew of people, resumes. Not all of them are good, but there's still a whole slew. So, yeah. Any other questions? Comments? Complaints? Once? Twice? Okay. It's fine. So of all, if you guys have any questions, I just want to say, or if you want to tag team, I'm looking for partners in crime. That's my goal this year, is to hit some of these, and I've already done the legwork. So if you guys want to participate, I've already, like that list that I've given you guys, I've already reached out to those groups. It's just a matter of letting them know what day I want to come and speak to their classes. So if anybody's interested in doing that, please let me know, because I welcome the companionship. So, yay! Awesome. All right. Well, thank you.